Thank you everyone for being here today for another book sandwich den. I am pleased to have Carrie Magnan, our Supervisor, here with me today.
Hello, everybody.
Who will be doing The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch. She is a huge Brady Bunch fan, and I am excited to hear her presentation today.
I'm nervous.
I know she will do great, and I know that everyone will have great confidence in her abilities to present today. And just a few announcements before we get started. If you were here, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, I made an announcement about postponing the Hobart William Smith Speaker Series, and I am pleased to say that we do have a new date for that. It is this Thursday at 6 o'clock. So I hope that everyone can come out to support the start of our speaker series. I will turn this over to Carrie to get started.
Great, thank you very much, Alexis, and thank you all for being here today. I'm a little nervous, but I think it's a good thing to see so many friendly faces in the audience today. Some of you probably recognize me from the library. I'm the circulation supervisor, and I'm also the library's notary. And when I'm here at the library, you can usually find me around the circulation desk or wandering around the building. When I'm not here at work, and yes, the library does let me go home, I can often be found reading or watching or thinking about the Brady Bunch. That's actually true. The show has been an important part of my life since 1975, which is a big year in Brady Bunch history, which we're going to get into when we talk about the Brady Bunch universe. But I'm going to spend this hour reviewing The Way We All Became the Brady Bunch by Kimberly Potts. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it for anybody who's even the slightest fan of the show. There's all kinds of great behind-the-scenes stories and anecdotes, and the author has some really good theories about why we are still talking about a show. Hang on, I'm going to go to my next slide here. That debuted 6 decades ago. Why are we still talking about this show, and why is it a part of our pop culture? So I thought maybe I'd start off with a little audience participation. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Brady Bunch. Okay, so everybody's heard of the Brady Bunch. Okay, so raise your hand again if you've seen an episode of the Brady Bunch. And I mean any episode could be, okay, so almost everybody here has seen the Brady Bunch. I think this is probably very representative of the country. Most people have seen or heard of the original show, or any of the shows, including up to a very Brady renovation, which took place, that started in 2019, and we're going to talk about that as well. But let's get started at the beginning. So hang on, let me get to my next sheet here. So the Brady Bunch was created by Sherwood Schwartz, who was born in 1916 in New Jersey, but grew up in Brooklyn. And his goal in life was to be a doctor. He graduated from NYU with a degree in biology. Unfortunately for him, at the time he wanted to go to medical school. Most medical schools in America had quotas on the number of Jewish residents that they would allow into their programs. And he was encouraged, actually, when he was at NYU, to change his last name to Black to increase his chances of getting into medical school, and he refused to do that. So in 1938, he moved out to Los Angeles to live with one of his brothers, who was a writer for one of Bob Hope's radio shows. While he was out in California, he earned a master's degree in biological sciences from USC. And he was continuing to pursue his dream of becoming a doctor. And while he was doing that, he started submitting jokes to Bob Hope's radio shows, following in his brother's footsteps. He did that to make a little extra money. And he discovered that he had kind of a gift for that. And Bob Hope signed him to a 7-year contract to write for his show. He was drafted into World War II and served his time stateside writing for the Armed Forces Radio Network. And upon his discharge from the Army, he began his writing career in earnest. And he wrote for many of the top shows at that time, including the Ozzie and Harriet show. Anybody remember that one? Yeah, okay. I Married Joan. I don't know if that was a huge hit, but My Favorite Martian. And he also wrote for the Red Skelton show, which was the show he earned his first Emmy Award for. So the first show that he wrote and created himself is probably familiar to many of you in the audience today. And I'm going to recite a little bit of the theme song which Sherwood Schwartz co-wrote. So raise your hand when you think you know the name of this show. So just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful, Mary Ferris and Cindy both know? What was it? It was Gilligan's Island. That was his first big hit. The series ran for 3 seasons, and it was a hit on CBS. Wasn't the greatest hit with television critics, and I'm going to just warn you now, that's a little bit of foreshadowing, so we're going to come back to that in a little bit. So while this show is on the air, Sherwood Schwartz reads a news article in the LA Times that said that nearly 30% of marriages had a child from a previous marriage. That gave him an idea. He thought that would make an amazing show about a blended family, and he sketched out some characters and came up with some episode ideas, and he called the show Yours and Mine, and registered it with the Writers Guild of America. He shopped it around to all 3 networks. Nobody was really interested in it at that time, without a lot of tweaks or changes, which he wasn't willing to make. So then a couple things happened in 1968. Gilligan's Island was canceled, and a movie about a Navy widower with 10 kids and a Navy widow with 8 kids met and fell in love, get married, have 2 children together. Does anybody know the name of that movie? Yours, Mine, and Ours, exactly. It was Yours, Mine, and Ours with Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball, and the movie was a really big hit. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun movie. It was such a hit that ABC remembered Sherwood Schwartz coming to them with this idea about a show about a blended family. And so they had some negotiations, and ABC greenlighted a 13-episode order for a show with the working title of The Bradley Brood. Anybody like that name better than the Brady Bunch? No, okay. So casting for the Bradley Brood began pretty quickly. And the author describes the way the 6 children were cast. And I think these are a couple of reasons we're still talking about the show today. So here's the first part. Like few series had done since Leave It to Beaver premiered back in 1957, the Brady Bunch was going to unfold its stories from the children's point of view. Each episode would spotlight one of the Brady kids and his or her relatable issues, creating, Schwartz hoped, a series that would appeal to a wide variety of young TV fans and make for appointment viewing for the whole family. Adding to the portrayal of the Brady crew as a realistic bunch viewers would welcome into their homes every week, Schwartz also wanted the young actors and actresses depicting the characters to come across as down-to-earth, charming kids. He wanted no entitled child stars, no demanding stage parents to complicate the production. Instead of writing specific outlines of the characters ahead of time, the actors' personalities would shape the characters they were playing. He wanted the Brady Six to be portrayed as dynamic young people with pleasant temperaments capable of maintaining focus, working well together, and behaving professionally on the set. So I'm going to read another quote from the book. This is more about the casting. Another part of Sherwood Schwartz's plan to make the Brady kids as appealing as possible was to match up the 3 girls and the 3 boys by age, starting with Cindy and Bobby as the youngest boy and girl, continuing with Jan and Peter as the sister and brother a few years older, and with junior high students Marcia and Greg as the oldest siblings. Schwartz felt younger audiences would always have a Brady kid that they identified with, even as they themselves grew up. Today's elementary school students who worried about missing kitty carry-all dolls and kazoos would grow into preteens fretting over their more accomplished sister and their lack of an engaging personality, only to hit their high school years and be faced with real heavy drama like being a responsible employee at your first job and deciding where to hide a goat after you've stolen a rival school's mascot. Or maybe something a little more universally and timelessly relatable, like a sibling tussle over who gets to ditch roommates and move into a solo bedroom. By September 1968, the cast was settled and the pilot had been shot. Now it was time to work on the theme song. Written entirely by Sherwood Schwartz, the theme song was sung by the Peppermint Trolley Company for season 1 and the Brady Kids for seasons 2 through 5. It's instantly recognizable to anyone born between, say, 1960 and 1985, or anyone who had children during that time. And in the opening, a precursor to our Zoom meetings, which starts with a lovely lady and her 3 lovely girls with hair of gold like their mother, then on to a man named Brady who was busy with 3 boys of his own, till one day when the lady meets this fellow, well, the rest is history. And the final piece... Yeah. Maybe we'll do a sing-along at the end. How's that sound? The final piece of the puzzle was a tough decision. The Bradley Brood or the Brady Bunch. I think we know how that all turned out. Go to the next slide. So on September 26, 1969, the Brady Bunch debuted and began a 5-season run on ABC. The day-to-day family happenings at 4222 Clinton Way were a modest hit with viewers, but not so much with TV critics. Cecil Smith of the LA Times said, "As to the worst show offered for the new TV season, there's no competition. It's the Brady Bunch. It's so cloyingly, nauseatingly sweet, so insufferably cute, so embarrassingly bad that discussing it becomes an ordeal." And Harry Harris of the Philadelphia Inquirer said, "It's a bunch all right, of baloney." But there were positive reviews too. Margot Ellis Elbera of Florida Today said, "We wouldn't call the Brady Bunch a great series, but it isn't bad either. It's a refreshing change of pace. Certainly the small fry will enjoy it." The show never cracked the top 30, but younger viewers were turning in faithfully to catch up with the Bradys on Friday nights. For many children who grew up with the series during its original run, or for the millions of young school children who became fans once the show went into syndication, this idea from the author seems to sum up another reason for the show's enduring legacy. The bottom line on the family's corniness and uncomplicated storylines is that the Brady Bunch was simply fun, relatable, wholesome entertainment for some viewers. For others, the show was an escape, a beacon of hope and a promise of an alternative life that came right into our living rooms and played out in full color, with family dinners, groovy wardrobes, a stable, clean, and modern home, super attentive, supportive, and loving adults, and a handful of siblings who would always ensure you had friends and playmates on call. The impact on fans, whether their motivation for parking themselves in front of the TV on Friday nights or later for the syndicated airings on weekday afternoons, was universal. And these are just a couple of fun facts from the book itself, which I think is kind of funny to think about Gene Hackman as Mike Brady. It's hard for me to imagine that, but he was actually one of the top picks for that show. I don't know how many people are huge fans of the Brady Bunch, but Robert Reed, who played Mike Brady, really had some problems with the writing on the show. He was not a huge fan of some of the corny storylines, and he actually he didn't participate in the final episode of the show. He didn't participate in episode number 117 because he was so upset that the episode revolved around Bobby Brady raising money by selling hair tonic door to door, which seems like even crazy by Brady Bunch standards, but Robert Reed really nitpicked a lot of the scripts, and he refused to participate in the episode because the hair tonic that Bobby was selling was not FDA approved, which seems, that's true, it seems like a weird reason not to want to participate in the episode. I think he just kind of maybe used that as an excuse not to be in it. So anyways, the show ended in 1974 after 117 episodes. Something happened in 1975, in addition to me starting to watch the show. The show went into syndication and was an immediate hit. So what does it mean when a show goes into syndication? It means that any network can purchase the rights to air the show. So once the Brady Bunch went into syndication, the series started over and over and over again and allowed a constant stream of new viewers to enjoy the show, much like my sister and me, who began watching it on our parents' little black and white TV back in the 1970s, mid-1970s. Just ponder this estimate of how many times the Brady Bunch had been shown as of its 30th anniversary in 1999. It's also no surprise that as of the show's 30th anniversary, it was estimated all 117 episodes of the Brady Bunch had already aired more than 100,000 times each So each episode aired 100,000 times. 100,000 chances for the earworm, that is the theme song, to get stuck in your head. 100,000 times to be confronted by the sight, or comforted by the sight, of Alice stirring something on the stove in her familiar blue dress. 100,000 times to wish you were a Brady. These airings were chances for viewers of every changing age group to memorize the show, identify with their characters and their problems, and allow the Brady Bunch to become a permanent part of their culture and childhood memories. Hang on, bear with me here. I have to share this fun fact about, so once the show goes into syndication, it just is airing all the time, all across the country. It's airing after school on your local CBS channel. It's airing on TNT. It's airing on cable networks. They're doing marathons of this show. And when it first starts airing on syndication, it just becomes this huge hit. It's like one of the top shows on that network's programming. These are all reruns. These are not new episodes. In 1976, that was the first year they televised the vice presidential debate, and it was between Bob Dole and Walter Mondale. So maybe not the most exciting vice presidential debate. Anyways, the Brady Bunch reruns did better in the ratings than that vice presidential debates. So, actually, let me go ahead here. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to enter the Brady universe for a little bit. So in 1969 to 1974, the original show airs. It goes into syndication in 1975. It just runs kind of the next 10 years on and off on all kinds of channels. 1972, the Brady Kids cartoon debuted. It aired for like 2 seasons, although it does show up in reruns because I remember watching it. And it was a very realistic portrayal of the kids in cartoon form. They all lived in a treehouse together with their 2 panda bears and their talking bear, and they had a rock band, and they got into all kinds of crazy adventures with Wonder Woman and Superman. So it was... And then in 1976, the Brady Bunch Variety Hour debuts. It was weird even by 70s television standards, but the cast actually had fun doing it. Even Robert Reed, who disliked the original show, he had a great time doing the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. And this brought a new face into the Brady Bunch universe. Eve Plum, who was Jan in the original series, did not star in the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. And I always wondered why that was the case, and the book talks about it. Apparently, they all had to sign on for a 5-year contract to do the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, which seems crazy. And she didn't want to do that. She did not want to be tied down to that show for 5 years, which was smart because it only lasted 9 episodes anyway. So, but she was not in it. So they had what they call, this woman has come to be known as Fake Jan. And it was the actress named Jerry Michelle, and she sort of has embraced the being Fake Jan. She actually put out a music album called Fake Jan Sings for Reals. So. Although the Brady Bunch Variety Hour did poorly in the ratings and only aired 9 episodes, it did spark an idea with Sherwood Schwartz that people might want to check in periodically with the Brady Bunch, which led to 2 movies in the 1980s. So we're going to move into the 80s here. So the first one was The Brady Girls Get Married. So Marcia and Jan both got married, not to each other, to their husbands. And that led to a TV series which did not last very long. And then in 1989, A Very Brady Christmas debuted. I'm sorry, 1988, A Very Brady Christmas debuted. And when that debuted, the Brady Bunch became the first show in history to ever air on all 3 networks. So the original show aired on ABC, The Brady Girls Get Married was on NBC, and then CBS aired A Very Brady Christmas, which is awesome. Has anybody seen A Very Brady Christmas? Besides Alexis? My son is not raising his hand, but I'm pretty sure he's seen it too, so. he just might not want to admit it. It was great, and actually, so both of these movies led to spin-off TV series, which were not very popular. So we're going to move into the 90s. So the Very Brady Christmas leads to The Brady's, which was an hour-long TV show and really dealt with non-Brady topics. Brady topics tend to be like, I don't know, I'm going to be the school monitor, or I'm a tattletale. I mean, simple things. But this show actually dealt with alcohol addiction, infertility, domestic abuse. It was just not a hit. No, it was airing around the same time as a show called 30-something. Does anybody remember that? So a lot of people called this one Brady-something because it was dealing with heavier topics. And then in May of 1992, Robert Reed, who played Mike Brady, passes away. And I don't know how many of you remember that. He died of cancer, but when the death certificate came out, it also indicated that he was HIV positive, and that was the first time I think that most people knew that he was very personal. He was very private about his personal life. And I actually have I have a bunch of Brady things over here. I have a People magazine that I bought right after he died from June of 1992. So he was the first major cast member who passed away, and that was a big deal. I mean, when he died, that was major news. That probably was one of the top news stories. That was difficult. Anyway, so now we're going to move into the mid-90s. So this movie, the Brady Bunch movie, was great because it saw the family recast and reimagined. So it was a whole new cast. The characters were the same. They were played by new actors and actresses, and they basically took the Bradys of the 1970s and dropped them into 1995. So they were still living the way they lived in 1974 when we left them, and they were going to school. The kids were going to school in the 1990s. It's just a really kind of clever rethinking of the series, and it was a big hit at the box office too, and it led to 2 sequels, a Very Brady sequel, and the other one was The Brady Bunch Visits the White House. And through a series of Brady-only hijinks, Mike Brady becomes president. So, what are you gonna do with that? Okay. The things went a little quiet in the 2000s. You could do worse than Mike Brady, right? There was a 35th anniversary reunion show which brought all the kids back together. And in the 2000s, Christopher Knight also had his own reality show called My Fair Brady. And I believe Florence Henderson was in that too. The next decades, we're going to move forward into the 2010s. So Ann B. Davis, who played Alice, passed away in 2011. And Florence Henderson passed away in 2016. So in 2015, I was trying to get a link to this I couldn't get it to work. But in 2015, there was a great Snickers ad. I don't know if anybody remembers the Snickers ads that would air during the Super Bowl. And so they had this great Brady Bunch Snickers ad. I wish I could get it to play because it's really funny. I think there's somebody here who remembers it. Yes, it was great. And the beginning of that ad is fantastic because you see the house and a little bit of Brady music and you know exactly what's coming. You know it's the Brady Bunch. You don't even have to think about it. Also in the 2010s, a lot of the cast members were doing things like autograph signing events or Comic-Cons, those sorts of things. And Barry Williams actually came, he had a tour called Growing Up Brady, which traveled through the country and included a stop in Rochester. And I got to meet him, and I danced on stage with him, and it was a true highlight in my life. And anyways, this book is over there. He signed his book for me too. So let's move ahead to the 2019. So 2019 saw the original cast together again in a series for the first time since the early 80s. I believe this is the first time they have been together since the Brady Girls Get Married. And they starred in HGTV's A Very Brady Renovation. And this was a hit with viewers and a great way to reconnect with our favorite TV kids, many of whom now have grandchildren. Sorry to make everybody age here. So where do the Bradys go from here? I'll go out on a limb, and I'm going to predict there's a series out there somewhere for the Bradys. There have not been very many decades since 1969 where there hasn't been something Brady-ish, a movie or a TV series. Maybe they're all retire and live together back at 42, 22, anyway. So I'm going to leave everybody with a quote from the author, and I think she has a really great take on why we are talking about the Brady Bunch almost 50 years after it debuted. So I'm going to, whoops, oh yeah, I forgot about this. So let me go back here. So if you're on social media, I'm sure you saw this meme posted. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you probably saw it many times because people kept sharing it on my Facebook page. So it's just kind of a funny way to keep the Bradys current here. But let me go to this quote, and I'm going to leave you with this, and then I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Any show that can not only stake out a place in TV history, but maintain and expand it into a permanent presence as a pop culture icon is worthy of respect. And it's worthy of examination, of a chronicle on how and why it endures, of answers to that question, why do we still love the Brady Bunch so much? The answers are legion, but they all lead back to one fact. Simplicity can be powerful. If you didn't have a family like the Bradys, you wanted one. If you did have a family like the Bradys, you identified with the show. If you were a big brother, the forgotten youngest one, a middle child who always felt the need to do something outlandish to draw more attention, a little sister who loved to tattle on her siblings, or the older sister who seemed impossibly perfect to her junior brethren, there was a Brady kid and dozens of their comedies and dramas with which to relate. Not to mention our mom and dad, and don't forget Alice, whose every waking moment was devoted to nothing so much as the happiness of all 6 children. So, I want to thank you all for being here. I hope I've given you some interesting tidbits about the Brady Bunch. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Did Robert Reed have any legal ramifications from refusing to be in the show? Like, 'cause nowadays they have all kind of...
Honestly, I think they were glad he wasn't a part of it because he really was very difficult to... Sherwood Schwartz and his son was also on the show, was like a producer and writer on the show, and they had just been dealing with issues with him and the writing for years, so I think they were like, okay, fine, if you don't want to be in this episode, great, we'll just go on without you. So, although that did lead to some issues because the writers were trying to figure out how would they handle a season 6 of the Brady Bunch without Mike Brady in it. They were already making plans on what to do to work around him. Like maybe he wouldn't be back for season 6. He would be working on an architectural project somewhere, or doing something work related, or he would just be out of the picture completely because I think they were just tired of dealing with him. So, but he did come back for all of the other shows. I mean, he did come back for the Brady Bunch, Hour. He was on the Brady Girls Get Married. He was on A Very Brady Christmas. So he did come back for all of those shows, and he actually had a really close relationship with all the kids on the show. He took them to London one time when they were on break. He took all 6 kids because he was a Shakespearean trained actor and he wanted to show them, I think he had done things at like the Old Vic in London, and he took them all on a cruise to London to see where he worked, where he acted. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Did the actors who were in this series get the benefit of all of these replays that they many reasons?
That's a really good question. The book doesn't talk about that. I mean, I certainly hope so, because, if it aired 100,000 times each, I mean, my math is not great, but that's like 1 million episodes. So, yeah, I would certainly hope so. I think contracts for kids back then maybe were a little different than they are now. So I'm not sure that's a great question. I'm going to look into that, Maggie. I'll get back to you on that. Jenny?
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
I have to admit, I've probably seen 1 episode.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I have all 5 seasons on DVD if you want to borrow them. So.
Did they ever say, like, how the 2 parents, like, what happened to their other spouses?
So they were more clear about Mike Brady. So he was a widower. That was made clear. Carol Brady's status was a little less clear. The understanding was that she was a divorcee, but they never really came right out and said that. And actually her ex-husband shows up in a Very Brady sequel, the movie, so yeah. But I don't actually think it was her ex-husband. But anyways, that's another.
And my other question is, the house that they renovated,
Mm-hmm.
do they end up reselling it, or is it like a museum?
It's not. My understanding is they're hoping, I think, to have people, you can pay to go into the house. The problem is it's actually in a neighborhood in Los Angeles, and so it's there's been some issues with the house. The last owner of the house was an elderly woman who lived alone, And, people broke into the house. I don't know if I think there's this perception that maybe the inside of that house looks like the Brady house, but all of the interior scenes for the Brady Bunch were filmed on a soundstage. They weren't filmed at that house. They just used the exterior of it. So when the woman passed away, her kids just wanted to sell it. They didn't want to keep it. And it worked out really well. There was actually a big bidding war over that house, and HGTV bought it, and then the kids all got together to renovate it and make it look like the Brady Bunch house that we know. So, any other questions? Anybody want to share any memories they have about the Brady Bunch?
What's your favorite episode?
So it's another great question, Jenny. Thank you for that.
You make it sound like it was scripted.
Yeah, no, it's not scripted. No. I mean, I'd like to say all of them are my favorite. Kind of like all of my kids. Both of my kids are my favorite. But and they are. Both of my kids are my favorite. I would say that my favorite episodes are what I call the trilogy episodes. So in season 3, the Bradys take a trip to the Grand Canyon. Anybody remember those? No? Okay, so they go on all these hijinks to get to the Grand Canyon. And then in season 4, they take a trip to Hawaii. Anybody remember those episodes? Yeah, okay. So those were a lot of fun because my husband and I were just in Hawaii a year ago. And he's such a good sport with my Brady passion. We actually walked. I feel like obsession is kind of a bad word. I feel like intense interest is maybe a better way to describe it. So we were staying right on Waikiki Beach, and we walked out to the Sheraton Waikiki, and he took my picture in front of the hotel because that's where the Brady stayed when they went to Hawaii. So. And then I took him out for coffee after that, so it was a nice morning. What were we talking? Oh yeah, the Hawaii episode. So those are probably my favorite. It was fun. It's actually funny. When I first started watching the show, I was the same age roughly as Cindy Brady was. So even though I'm the oldest in my family, I've always felt a connection to Cindy because we were sort of the same age. So just kind of funny like that. Yes, Maggie.
Did Sherwood Schwartz have any other shows after the Brady Bunch?
No, it's just the Brady Bunch. Yeah, but I mean, they kept coming back to the Brady Bunch over and over again. So, I mean, it was a success. So it's like, why not? And there's certainly lots of viewers out there who wanted to see, that very Brady Christmas, which I can't stop talking about, was actually the second highest rated TV movie of the whole year in 1988, which, yeah, and it's great. I really can't say enough good things about A Very Brady Christmas. I also have that on DVD if anybody's interested in borrowing that. It's great. I watch it every year at Christmas when I'm like wrapping presents and stuff. So.
Was Oliver the dog?
So I have gotten more questions about Oliver. So does anybody know who Oliver is in the Brady Bunch? Anybody? So Oliver was Carol Brady's nephew, and Oliver came to live with the Brady Bunch in season 5, and he was they thought he was a jinx because he shows up at the house and all these crazy things start happening, which is not unusual with the Bradys. There were always crazy things happening, but he was on for maybe, 5 episodes or something in season 5. So he was one of those characters. It was kind of like TV shows do that when the show has sort of run its course and they're like, hey, look, there's this new younger person. Let's introduce him. So he came on the show, and he's got a bad rap over the years, but he's pretty harmless. So yeah, he's not really a jinx. Any other questions?
Kids all got together, right? Like outside of the show, didn't they all kind of?
You mean like dating, that kind of thing?
No, just
Oh.
like, friendships. And,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
there weren't any real issues.
No. In fact, they all got along really well. They spent a lot of time together on the set. They all went to school together. So they had their own teacher on set. So there were 6 kids in their class. It was the 6 of them. And they spent a lot of time together. They filmed a lot of scenes together. They traveled together. I didn't even go into some of the other stuff. If you check out the Brady table over here, they actually put out a couple of albums, believe it or not. They went on tour. The 6 kids did musical tours in the early 70s. I have their Christmas album, which I always promise to play for the Cirque staff around Christmas time. But I don't know if that's a promise or a threat. I'm not sure which one that is. But they did that. They did a lot of touring together. They all got along really well. There's always going to be maybe some, annoyances. Yeah, go.
So I noticed you have Alice's
Yes.
So do you have everyone's autograph?
I do not. That's a goal. That's one of my bucket list things. So I met Alice in 1995 when I lived in Washington, D.C. She was doing, she was on a book tour for Alice's Brady Bunch cookbook, which is funny because she doesn't cook, so I don't know if anybody knows that. So she was wonderful. I got a picture taken with her, but I have no idea where that picture is. My husband was in the Navy. We moved around all the time. I have no idea what happened to that picture. It's somewhere in our garage, probably. So I met her, and she was wonderful, just really, really nice. And then I met Barry Williams, who played Greg Brady. And I keep looking to see, sometimes the Brady kids go on like tour together, just like a list, I don't know, they do dancing and stuff, or they answer questions. And they were at the State Fair in 2014, but I wasn't able to get to that. So I keep looking every year, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they'll come back this year, because I would definitely go. So. Oh, and my brother, actually, this is funny. I have a younger brother, and my mom and dad are here, and they've always been very supportive of my Brady obsessions. And so Maureen McCormick actually put out a country album, and she was touring, she was in Rochester on her tour, and I wasn't able to get up there to meet her and get her autograph, so my brother went, and he was like 12. And he had to be the only preteen boy in line to meet Maureen McCormick, and I think he was interviewed by like 98PXY. He says no, but I think he was. But anyway, so I have her autograph, but I never actually met her, so. Yes?
We have to leave.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Oh, great. Well, thank you.
In the comments too. It was
Yeah.
very, very good.
Oh, good. Thank you.
We have another appointment.
Okay, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Have a good day. Any other thoughts, any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you all for being here today. Thank you. It's been my pleasure talking about the Brady Bunch. I have to give a big shout out to my coworkers because we do like random Brady Bunch trivia, just sort of out of the blue. They're very good sports about it. They really are. I do random Brady Bunch trivia. Yeah. So have a Brady day, everybody. Thank you for being here.